What's up guys, Roman from RNS Entertainment here with another episode of Comic History, where I go over the iconic origins and storylines of all sorts of comic book characters. In this video we're going to be talking about the origin of Cyborg, a prominent member of the Teen Titans and a future member of the Justice League. This is the first video in a series of comic histories on the origins of several members of the Teen Titans, including Raven and Starfire, who were both introduced during my favorite run of the Titans, the New Teen Titans in the 80s, and Beast Boy / Changeling, who was also a member of the team at that time. I've also done a video on the origin of Terra, and we'll be doing a video on the origin of the New Teen Titans as a group, and on the origin of Nightwing, so be sure to be on the lookout for those. Victor Stone grew up the son of two research scientists who experimented on him from a young age, seemingly increasing his intelligence to a genius level and forcing him to constantly learn, occasionally taking him places like a normal family, but often leaving Victor feeling more like a guinea pig than a son. They never let their son go to a public school, opting for private tutors and leaving him feeling sheltered and cut off from the outside world. So when Victor was 8, he began sneaking out at night to experience the world. One night when he walked into the street, he saved from getting run over by a truck by an older boy named Ron Evers, and this small-time criminal became Victor's first friend, taking him out to steal, smoke, and generally get in trouble. After being brought home by the police one night, Victor says that he doesn't want to be a scientist and that he wants to go to a normal school and know other kids his age, but his father berates him and keeps trying to push him towards what he wants for Victor, concerned with his own dreams over his son's. Eventually, his mom convinced his father to let him attend public school, and Victor became a natural sports star. Anything from track to bodybuilding to football, he excelled in all of it. He got himself a girlfriend named Marcy and continued to roll with Ron's gang, who had essentially become Black Panthers. After Ron spent some time in a reform school, he approaches Victor telling him that they needed to strike back at a white gang, and though Victor harbors no racist thoughts of his own, Marcy and Ron both tell him that they need to fight against the white man in any way they can. So Victor goes to the gang war, and after being cut with a knife goes into a rage and lets out all of his pent-up anger, getting saved by Ron and managing to get out of there when the cops show up, making it back home to his parents, who tell him that everything he had been through was his own fault for squandering his opportunities. When Victor is 17, Ron calls him over, telling him that they need to strike back against the white man by taking over the Statue of Liberty and gaining an audience to make demands, and he wants Victor to do the talking. Victor tells Ron that this plan is wrong, and when Ron calls Victor privileged, he tells Ron that he fought for his scholarship himself, earning it through excelling in sports, and that his parents refused to give him a dime unless he majored in science, walking out on Ron for good. Ron was arrested for climbing the statue, and spent a year in prison while Victor went off to college and trained for the Olympics. And one day when he went to meet his parents at Star Labs, he finds that one of their experiments into opening doorways to other dimensions has succeeded, but released a viscous, caustic monster that burned his mother alive and then turns its sights on Victor, enveloping parts of him and melting away at his skin and bones. But his father managed to crawl to the machine and recall the monster, destroying the portal in the process. With Victor's mother dead and him in the hospital nearing death, his father vowed that he wouldn't lose his son too, and used the technology he had been developing for the military, a series of cybernetic body parts, to augment and restore his son. Using the unauthorized and untested technology, Victor's father pieced him back together, forming a modern-day Prometheus, though Victor looks on himself more as a modern-day Frankenstein, waking up a month later once his body had accepted the grafted-on machinery to find himself changed into something else. Victor wakes up with nothing but anger at his father, seeing himself as a guinea pig yet again, and tells him that he should have let Victor die. Victor spent 5 months in the hospital, having to relearn everything from how to walk to being able to control his newfound strength. Everything that he had once excelled at, he had to relearn from scratch, seeing no one but the man he hated most in that time, though his father stayed with him and forced him to relearn how to be a person. When Cyborg finally re-enters the world, he finds nothing but fear and revulsion from people around him, and moves out from his parents' house to Hell's Kitchen, holing up in a rat hole apartment until weeks later he was found by Ron, who wants him to go with him and his new gang to blow up the United Nations building, telling Cyborg that it was the white man who did this to him, which Victor quickly points out isn't true. It was his father, and even if it was a white guy, he'd go after the individual, not everybody who happens to have the same skin tone. And Ron leaves, telling him he'll be back. Cyborg tries to get up with his old girlfriend Marcy, but all of his calls are ignored. She bailed on him completely because of his disfigurement. He then tries to go back to school, finding out that he's no longer allowed to compete on any sports teams because of his cybernetics, and that even without them, his grades had fallen too low to maintain his scholarship, despite his genius IQ. Cyborg finds Ron waiting for him outside his building, and Cyborg agrees to go with him on the bombing, though he had already decided to stop him and his group of would-be terrorists. Showing up earlier than they told him to, Cyborg climbs the building building with foot spikes and uses his amplified hearing to pick up Ron and his gang talking about betraying Victor and leaving him there as a scapegoat. And Cyborg confronts his old friend, his cybernetics glinting in the starlight. He tells Ron that sickness doesn't know color, and that Ron had always been sick, always blaming others for his own failures, deflecting bullets shot at him and beating down the gang members. Ron ends up tripping over Cyborg's leg and dangling off the edge of the building, starting the bomb's countdown timer in the process. Cyborg intends to save Ron, but with only 5 seconds on the timer, he has to choose Ron or the United Nations. And despite Ron's pleas that Victor owed him for saving his life, Cyborg refuses to let terrorists destroy the United Nations building and throws the bomb as far into the sky as he can, lighting up the city with the explosion and drowning out Ron's screams as he fell from the building. His body never to be found, though he had certainly died, destroyed by his own hatred, which Cyborg reflects on in present time, thanking his friends in the Titans for helping him overcome hatred of his own. So this wraps up the origin of Cyborg, an important member of the new Teen Titans and a character that has survived the test of time, having been a major recurring member of the Titans, appearing in multiple animated series and films including the Teen Titans animated series, Flashpoint, Justice League Doomed, and others, eventually finding a spot on the Justice League in the comics, and currently starring in his own self-titled solo series in the DCU. If you like this video, make sure to thumbs up and subscribe. Let us know what characters or storylines you'd like to see in future comic histories in the comment section below. Check out some of our other videos on the channel, including comic histories, double-sided comic reviews for current issues on comics, comic rants for rants on comic concepts, stories, and characters, and all sorts of other great videos on DC and Marvel Comics, The Walking Dead comic series, Game of Thrones, The Song of Ice and Fire, and a ton of other great comics, TV shows, and movies. Also, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/RNS Entertainment Channel, and subscribe to my gaming channel.